Yeah, obviously there was a lot of takeaways from that. You know, we sort of were chasing our tails from the start. You know, they capitalised on every mistake. Anytime we sort of missed a rotation, they scored out of it. If we turned the ball over, they scored out of it. And if we gave up the offensive rebound, felt like they scored out of it. So, I mean, full credit to Adelaide. You know, every time, again, there was a subtle error, they seemed to capitalise, and we were just constantly trying to chase our tails.
Obviously, Bryce will grab the headlines with his scoring performance. Clearly found it tough out there to guard him, as per usual for an MVP caliber player.
Yeah, I mean, we started off good, and then we were like late to the on balls, and then the problem was we were jumping at shadows, and now Bryce is able to make passes because he's such a willing passer out of that action. That now guys like Cameron are getting looks. Humphreys is getting looks on the rim. If we're tagging Humphreys, then they're kicking out to the guard on the perimeter for that extra. So we were late in those actions, and it's something we'll work on and fix. And a big part of that's on me, trying to make too many defensive adjustments, where I think we just need to be rock solid. I think we just need to be solid with what we do defensively, not try and add too many extra pieces to it, which again, showed tonight.
So quiet night for Jack scoring wise. Do you put that down to good defensive, adjustments from Adelaide, maybe some fatigue? Like what does it kind of come down to from your perspective?
Oh, probably all the above. Again, you don't want to make excuses, but in Jack's case, for example, it's 3 games in 7 days, and I think he's played close to 100 minutes, right? So, fatigue would definitely be an issue. I think we can wash this for Jack as a bad game. We're trying to force it probably one too many times, and we'll sit with Jack and review it. And the moment he sort of gets into that kill box type position, Adelaide will send in 3 guys, and so we'll do a better job as a team to find options to make him pass out of it, and work in progress.
Obviously, Marcus struggled with his fouls last time here, and then obviously picked up the free kind of midway through the second quarter. Was that an issue? Was that a concern for you? And how did you feel about how he responded in that second half?
Yeah, again, because I think his second one, when we had to sub him out in the first, for the most part, we were doing a pretty solid job. Again, there was definitely a couple of errors, but I think for the first 5.5, 6 minutes, when you take away some of the things we could have fixed on the offensive end, it's a 1 possession game. We sub Marcus out, and then suddenly, they finish out the quarter scoring 36. So, especially with Wardenberg out for this stretch, we're very reliant on Marcus to be available. So that's something we'll continue to work with him on. But also, his third foul is off a blow-by, so, defensively, there's a responsibility that everybody has to be held accountable for in that position. When Marcus sort of anchors the defence, he can be left in a tricky spot sometimes, and so we've got to do a better job of supporting him.
You alluded to his influence on the game clearly with how kind of things changed when he came off the court. What do you make of offensively? Obviously, he scored a lot of points, and it seemed like the 2-man action with him and Andrews was working really well.
Yeah, and again, we don't just want to come into that 2-man action. The ball's stuck. The ball stuck multiple times. And even when we tried a couple of different sets, we would do some things off the ball, we do some things with the ball. It would work good for maybe 1 or 2 sequences. Adelaide would do something to sort of get a bit of a run, and then we try to get him to a foot race with him. The reality is I think we have to be more of a half-court team this year. We've got to be a bit more selective with our shots and getting through some actions. And so, when we tried to get into this running race with Adelaide, obviously they capitalised on it, and we were on the poor end of it.
How was the morale throughout the game? Like, you guys just had a really good weekend, Cairns was behind you, and then that was a pretty tough game chasing the tail. How was the energy?
Yeah, I mean, we addressed it at half-time. It's all of us in the first half were, let's say, for example, really getting annoyed with some of the officiating, right? And so the message at halftime was like, we can't get too caught up on that, like when we talk about energy, that's not where we want to spend energy on. Because, like, again, we talk about that like the Sydney games and so forth, you can challenge the calls that are made. You can't challenge the calls that aren't made. So there's nothing we can do about it. You sort of have to, put that energy elsewhere. And so they did a better job, especially in the third. But one of the things too, right, was, again, we get rebounds and then they fumble out of bounds. And, you can next possession, but again, it does. It chips away at the group, because it's an unforced error. It's something we can fix. We'll build mental resilience through the reps that we put it together on the training floor in the games. But it's really important. Like, we have to move on to that next possession. So, you fumble and turn it over, or you get stolen from behind and they come down and score out of it. The energy we can spend in that next possession is going to be important. That's probably something we're going to really work on.
Chris on Zoom.
Yeah, just quickly, Forde. You got the response here after that first loss, obviously, with those 2 wins last week. And now that you're in a similar situation again after this one, with a week in between before you play again, do you take a similar approach this week with how you deal with the players in practice, or do you try something different? I know you haven't had time to think about it yet, but how do you think you will approach it?
Oh, look, yes, no. Again, the response from the first week was, was warranted. I think this one, again, you sort of have to factor in some outside influences that, it's been a long week. We've now played more games, than in this week than some teams have played all season. So, I don't think I need to remind these guys in a sense of how to play hard or what needs to get done on the training floor. Drew, again, played a lot in that first half, and then, the wind was sort of taken out of his sails because, you still want to allow for a little bit of jet lag. So, we'll give these guys the next couple of days because we've got 8 days till Perth, which is great, and we need it. And so we'll factor in, obviously, a little bit of rest and recovery and bit of R&R, and then we'll hit the training floor again on Sunday, review this, and obviously make the adjustments we need to. Because it's glaring, it's easy enough to see what we did wrong and what we need to fix, and then we'll go from there.
Thanks, Marty.
Awesome. Thanks, Chris.
Yeah, so obviously you rested Jack at the end there once the game was kind of, beyond doubt, I suppose. But it did seem like you gave him a bit more rest during the game when it was still obviously up in the air. Was that a situational thing? Obviously you mentioned, the significant amount of games, or are you trying to build in a bit more rest during the game throughout for Jack at this stage?
No, again, I think Jack played tired today, and that was, he put his heart and soul into those games, the last 2 games, and he was putting whatever he had left in the tank. He looked tired, and again, once the game started to get a little bit of slippage, we knew we wanted to try and probably give him some shorter stints for this game especially. But once the game was out of reach, there was no point being a dead horse and give him this time to obviously recharge and come back with another big one for next week. Awesome. Thank you. Appreciate it. Thank you.